Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel state. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back. We're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision. Because this isn't even really the Roberts Court. Mm-hmm. It's the Trump Court.
Yes.
And what we would expect from the Trump Court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm election.
Okay, but listen to this language, because again, it sounds
violent,
elections and beyond. Because these extremists have failed America in every possible way. They failed on the economy. They failed on health care. They're failing as it relates to this reckless and costly war of choice. The extremists have completely and totally failed America.
That's right.
So they've concluded, aided and abetted by the Trump court, that they have to cheat to win.
Yes.
So, I noticed the same thing. You know, we've just had all this violence, political violence at a peak. And Hakeem Jeffries piles it on. Democrats are big mad at this SCOTUS decision last night. What happened?
Oh, well, yesterday, the Louisiana versus Calais decision came down for the Voters' Right Act, which said you cannot draw districts based on race, which they explicitly had done in Louisiana. So it has really caused a meltdown. And one of those was Hakeem Jeffries. And of course, my favorite was Mark Elias, because, you know, I love to taunt that man for what he did to us during COVID.
You hate the man. Yeah.
And they made an order that Judge Alito must have something out by 4 p.m. today regarding that ruling yesterday. And this is what's happening. They're going to redraw the districts in Louisiana, and the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, has stated that he has created a state of emergency to be able to do this.
Right? No primaries. So, guys, if you're not very familiar with voting districts and how it works, you know, this goes back, and we're going to listen to a few more videos here that are pretty explanatory, but it goes back to, you know, back in the day when there really was discrimination and there was a lot of stuff going on. That was what's justified it. But going forward, what's justified gerrymandering? Okay, so if we look at a map, some maps, let's just take North Carolina, you would see a snake drawn. Like
there is a snake drawn right now.
Okay. So there was literally areas where it would try to get the most black voters. The thesis, by the way, is that black voters always vote Democrat. Black voters usually vote Democrat. Same thing for Jews, like usually vote Democrat. So in other words, it was really a Democrat mechanism to get the vote. But I don't know if you follow Pastor Justin Wells, but here's what he said about that and what we just said. So black voters are not all on board with this agenda.
They're not a monolith.
Has to vote for a representative. That's not fair, right? That was needed at the time, but we're not in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s anymore. We're not in that era, and anybody that says we are is delusional. But the real hurt, the real suppression of the black vote has been the what the Democrats have done with the bringing in millions of illegal immigrants and abortion of our children. I was just talking about this. 45% of abortions are by black people.
Wow.
Right? We have been at 13% of the population for a very, very long time in this country. You know why? Because the black community, black women and black men have, especially black women, have gone out there aborting their children, sleeping around with different men, and have aborted their children. And so we have been at 13%. We are now behind Hispanics. Okay. As far as it goes, as far as like the minority group. Why? Because we continue to be influenced by Cardi B's and Meg Thee Stallion type women, and we continue to go out there and have unmarried sex. We continue to go out there and do those things. And
so he's making a value-based argument, but he started off saying, look, this isn't fair, the way the districts have been drawn, and that really what's killing the black vote is killing the black community. That would be abortion, and that would be the great replacement theory, like everyone likes to talk about. It actually is happening with the black community, where things that are created to help black people in some of the poorest areas get a leg up are being given to illegals. So
well, they vote against they don't vote in their best interest. They vote against their own needs. And if you're on any X spaces that talk about that, you'll find it very interesting that what you hear now is, are you African? I can't remember the terms they use, but they delineate whether you are like a Nigerian that moved to America, or you're a natural born black American.
Who is they? Because a lot of people
I would say the Twitter sphere or the X sphere of black Americans who want to delineate and prove their lineage here, because they feel like even immigrants from Africa are taking from them, which is interesting. I think that's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, the whole this is a very big ruling that we're going to unpack. We want to listen to a moron, though. There's plenty for the picking. This is Sunny Houston from The View, and this is the typical Democrat position talking point. But again, talking about fighting, etc. But
wow. As a black woman, that my father was born in 1949. He remembers segregated schools. He remembers segregated water fountains. He remembers that he did not have full civil rights. And he told me when I turned 40 years old that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And he is still alive today, and I am still alive today, and I have been discriminated against. And now I have to tell my children that they have less civil rights than I did when I was born. That's true.
Okay.
But she's on $1 million show making money. So
yeah,
she's really
I'm growing very tired of this. But there's two things, that that's used to justify things like this, and things like DEI, which we're going to have Adam Gillette on in just a second to talk about this, is that they meaning lawmakers, they're not going to say, well, look, we enacted this voting district because of race, right? Or this criminal justice policy, or this hiring policy, or this bull crap in the classroom. We're doing it for disparate impact. In other words, and that came out during the Obama administration, specifically applying to schools and discipline. And thesis is, well, we're going to end no money bail. We're going to end suspension, or we're going to end,
any kind of discipline,
because it disproportionately affects black people, right? So, and by the way, there's no way to quantify
measure that,
right? But in this ruling, it also rules that disparate impact and doing laws on measure of that is, of course, unconstitutional. We always knew that. So there's going to be, I think, a bigger effect.
Well, I would not be surprised at that. I think It's clear the trend of the court is to be in favor of more individualism. And I say that broadly. We're talking about, parents have a right to their children, to what their children are exposed to in schools. This ruling here, it's showing basically that one color is not a monolith. You can't group them all and say, we're putting them in that group because they're Black. That doesn't mean they're all going to vote like they think they will, right?
Conservative Jew, there's not, a lot of us, right? It's probably maybe it's 60-40 now, so it's getting better. But to say we're going to draw a district with all whatever, it can backfire, but it takes a couple of generations to do that, right?
It can, yeah. But lately, I would say, you'd say generations, but I would say since probably 2015, we've seen a massive, switch, because a lot of Black voters like Trump, and they like freedom, and they like money. And the thing that I think is interesting is
we all do. In other words, they're Americans.
They're absolutely get away from the color. Absolutely,
right.
100%.
Color, etc., is racist. I think a lot of people are
over it.
That, right? They're picking up on that, and so the Democrats have said, look, Black people are not capable of getting an ID. Right? There's a disparate impact when you have mandatory voter ID. There's a disparate impact because having an ID and having to go get one affects Black people more than white people. And then you start asking why, and the only possible answer would be a racist answer.
Yeah. And you can see that in several of the posts that I saw. Stacey Abrams, the faith and democracy is done. Well, lady, you were the one that killed it. Listen, what you did in Georgia, everybody saw. And also Mark Elias, who really, he was more racist than I think the court said this ruling was in his interpretation. So there's a lot of leftists that are really, really showing their colors. No pun intended.
Oh, that was a good one. Okay, so we've got an update. We, on Tuesday, told you about a bill that went in the House and cleared the House. Looks like Josh Stein is going to prepare to sign that. And look what it does. It really reforms Medicaid. Now, this is pretty much in keeping with the federal law, right? Work requirement. So again, you can't be on the couch smoking a blunt one day, working at Target the next day, and Medicaid the next. It's going to make you do 3 months of compliance. And it really is going to put a lot of teeth in here, a lot of accountability. It requires the state to implement these requirements to the full extent under the feds. Self-attestation, I can't believe that was ever allowed. Monthly checks, regular state audits, it will cost money. Another thing that just came out is, we were talking about this also.
Oh, I saw. Yeah, there's a slew of bills being transferred around between
SCOTUS and all of these bills dropping.
It's kind of insane. My email has just gone crazy. My email's gone crazy with, the changes that are taking place, from that crazy. I think this is kind of nuts. Why does the government need to tell you not to put your dog in your lap when you drive? But that's actually a bill that's out there, and people are real excited about it.
Yeah. So there's the guy out of Durham proposed this, but there's a bill to say that it's illegal to drive with a pet in your lap.
Right. And then I will give the lady in Guilford County, Pricey, some kudos. Yeah, she actually put up a bill that said that politicians who are in the state legislature cannot do predictive markets that would pay them on predicting whether a bill would pass or certain things happen. So that also happened in the federal, federally today, but now it's happening locally. So that's good. Okay.
So this one, I've got mixed feelings about SB 696.
That one scares me.
Well, okay. So really what it does is it says, look, teacher licensure here. I think you should just remove teacher licensure and just say college degree. And that way, because look, if you have, I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep it real on this. You're going to follow me? I'm just going to keep it real. If you've got a 4-year degree in math, a 4-year degree in biology, a 4-year degree in something substantive, particularly in the sciences, you are more qualified to teach math and science than a teacher would be. And I don't give a damn if they say, well, it's the art of teaching. We've seen a whole lot of art of teaching. It's garbage. Okay. But this one, just right quick, if I may, this one will get rid of requirements for teacher prep programs. Teachers can teach 3 years without passing exams. Okay. Any exams. So there's no level set. So of course, okay, they graduate from Appalachian State. You would assume they know how to do math. Then let me tell you something, brothers and sisters out there. For 5 years running, North Carolina has had a problem with teachers and 30 and 40% not being able to pass these tests, the math tests, the reading tests. I'm not lying. Okay. So it's going to get rid of that. All right. Allow some teachers to bypass exams altogether if they've got a positive rating on their EVAS, which is a student, it's self-reported. Well, we also talked about on Tuesday, there's a lot of very charismatic teachers who would score very high that are doing some dubious at best practices, right? And the last one makes it easier for out-of-state teachers to get licensed. Big fan of that.
I'm a huge fan of that because where I live, they go work in Tennessee and Georgia because they make more money. So if they're going to cannibalize off of the North Carolina base here and take them over there, which they love to leave because they're going to make more, we should be able to do the same. And it's ridiculous that they can literally leave one day and start the next day, and their licensure is fully, it's recognized, but ours isn't. Weird. Anyway, my feeling on what you said about people that teach math and science that are more qualified, I will just say from my experience, there needs to be some type of test up front because I know a lot. I work with a lot of scientists.
You are a scientist.
I'm in data, but whatever. Not all of them can teach. They think they can, but they cannot. So there should be some type of performative, can you take cues from people? Can you read the room?
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of
idiots.
Yeah, right. So fair point. They're doing it obviously to expand access, to expand the workforce, et cetera. But studies have shown that, get this, there is a higher rate of people leaving the profession when you do this.
Well, what's interesting, what they're doing here, which I found interesting, is we actually have a mayor who does not have a college degree who is being allowed to teach in school until he finishes his degree.
Well, 18-year-olds are allowed to be substitute teachers.
Yeah. Really? They don't have to have a college degree?
Mm-mm.
Wow. So does the district make that policy, or is that a state policy?
District.
Well, that makes a difference. I think, if you have a high demand of people that are older and have qualifications like we do here, then they're retired, educated people. I think that's the difference.
18-year-olds end up going in and hooking up with 16-year-olds.
Well, that we've seen quite often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you're trying to spend, how about just paying teachers more? Right. And I think we're getting to that, but I'm not willing to pay teachers more and have no exams. And that's what they're trying to do. That I don't like. Now, this came out of the Senate, and the House, for their part, they want to pay teachers a lot more than the Senate. So this is a Senate. This is a committee. We're in its infancy stages here with this potential law.
So I'm just going to tell you my feeling on the whole pay thing. They're going to have to do 20% raises for 3 years to get these people caught up. If they start saying single digit raises, 7% a year, you're basically telling a teacher, I'm going to give you an extra $100 a month after taxes. That's not going to get them ahead of anything. We're in the private sector, someone getting a 20% raise, they better be creating rocket fuel out of, water, because that's just unheard of. That does not happen. So we've got to find a way to easily, quickly catch up. And I have seen some things, out there that I thought were interesting. But like, for instance, why do teachers have to pay income tax? Why don't we just say waive their income tax and give them their money back? They're teaching our kids.
Yeah.
State income tax. Absolutely. Or, give them some ways that they're incentivized, and it's not just $100 catch up, because while I understand $100 is a lot to any family, $100 is that's $1,200 a year is not the impact that's going to make a difference. It would take 7 years for them to start to catch up if we keep single digit raises around. So there has to be something done, and it needs to be cumulative. Either you start out fast and you say, we're going to do 15% raises, and then we'll gradually lower them so they at least have some feeling of getting ahead, or they're never going to get ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of plans on the table, and we'll see what happens. I mean, this, like you said, the legislative season is off to a full sprint. So
Crazy.
I know this week, one of your favorite schools, UNC Asheville, that you have been doing a lot of documentation on. Accuracy in Media, friend of the shows, Adam Gillette, has done a lot of work in this field. As you probably know, audience, there is an executive order in place from Trump that says no more DEI programs and federal funding. The state, North Carolina, doesn't have one yet, right? And Adam will tell us if their provisions are not very good, right? So we're working off the federal law, but I'm telling you, every time Accuracy in Media comes out with something, someone gets fired or reamed for doing this stuff. So this is from Asheville, and again, this is your pet school. So this is going to
It's not my pet school. Gone.
A lot of people who are needing, psychological services, social work are, minorities. Part of their training has to be to understand all those dynamics. I'd be lying if I said, oh no, DEI is just the way it's always been. It is, but it's still here, but it's like the E is gone, but the D and the I are still here.
Okay, so wow. Hello, Adam. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. Glad to be here.
By the way, I just have to tell you one thing. You're a UF grad, right?
I was thrown out of UF because of my activism in college. I was enrolled for about 5 or 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And eventually shown the door. I'll never amount to anything with my non-poli-sci degree.
Well, I don't think my news is going to land very well, because we were talking about how tough it is to get in, right, from out of state.
Absolutely.
My son got in.
I saw that. I was so proud. I'm so happy. I saw that. I have mixed feelings about UF. I'm incredibly happy with the direction it's gone in far more recently. When I was at the university, I helped get our provost ousted, which didn't quite endear me to the faculty, but I also helped launch a campaign to put American flags in every classroom in the state of Florida, starting with the University of Florida, which shockingly right after 9/11 was rather contentious. So I could say at the very least, in addition to not having a very high tuition bill and probably getting to see some great sports, he'll also see American flags in every classroom.
Excellent.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Well, that's a good story. So you and our name is kind of mud over there already, since I got a Groyper group thrown out. So we're in a league of our own, as Margot would tell you. I'm already in a league of my own. But anyway, again, I mean, you've done it again. You guys they're never wise to this. I mean, you'll see these administrators are free flowing, admitting this stuff.
Yeah, what's to your point, actually, we had multiple administrators fired this month in the state of Texas, but that gentleman, as of now, from UNC Asheville, the chair of the psychology program, has kept his job. And those were some of the wackier things he said, or, more ridiculous, outrageous things he said, but it actually got worse. He started with, because of widespread racism, more minorities are needing mental health. Imagine you're paying $300 an hour to sit on a couch and talk about your family troubles, what's going on in your relationships and in your life. And the person tells you, well, it's because of racism. It's not because, you had this happen in your life or that happened in your life. It's because you're an oppressed person. He went on to say, yeah, the E is gone, but the D and the I are still there. Really? They've got diversity and inclusion at UNC Asheville? Look at the voter registration of the poli-sci department. Look at the political donations to the university. They're only inclusive of far left radicals. There's no diversity of thought. And then perhaps most outrageous, he told us that he was bemoaning that the state was forcing them to teach foundations of democracy, so they had to push, quote unquote, weird conservative documents like the Constitution and the Federalist Papers. I had no idea that the Constitution had a political ideology in the left-right spectrum.
I find it very, what makes me most alarmed about what you just said is that he's the head of a psychology department, which means that everything he's saying, he's teaching. And those are the same people that are going to go try to become therapists, school psychologists. They're going to permeate that garbage all the way through our society. And our medical board, which gives out, or psychology board, is going to allow that.
And if you want to do this with private money and have a left-wing nonprofit organization, knock yourself out. I'm for a diverse marketplace of ideas. We don't need to be funding it. I know the state of North Carolina doesn't have a strict DEI ban, but you have a Board of Regents ruling against it. And I think it's because of that Board of Regents ruling that about a half a dozen administrators, including the Dean of Students at UNC Asheville, lost their jobs after starring in our videos in the past year. So I am outraged that the university has issued no statement about this. I guess they're just desperate for me to visit again.
Well, I'm going to give you some statistics to help you when you do visit. Number one, a third of the budget or the funding for that school comes from taxpayers. 1/3. That school has the lowest amount of enrollment of any university in the state. There are less than 3,000 students there. The ratio for student teacher is 1 to 12. It's less than 50 miles from a major university, Western Carolina University. It's my contention that we don't need University of North Carolina at Asheville, that it should be closed, and that set of faculty should be given the choice to go to Western Carolina or find another job.
Well, they've been in at Western Carolina. We exposed an administrator there as well. I think they lost their job, so it would be a natural transition.
But the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, well, we've jokingly said that the investigator who did all of these is the angel of unemployment. Anywhere she shows up, jobs are open. And let me be clear, by the way, we don't take joy in somebody losing their job, and we don't define it as impact either. But what we have learned oftentimes is that it leads to impact. Because usually when we revisit universities after people have lost their job, the media calls it a chilling effect. I call it they comply with the law or the Board of Regents ruling, which is a crazy idea. And you say a third of their budget comes from taxpayers. Yeah. I guarantee you it's more, because does that take into account all of the taxpayer-funded scholarships that most state students get?
Is it right? Is it state money?
Yeah, it's state taxpayer money. Okay. That is inclusive of everything their scholarships specifically come from a separate fund, and they are not state scholarships. They only have very few. They're very high donor driven. What is interesting to me is that if you really look at them, we spend more money trying to actualize their pensions than anything else. Healthcare and pensions, but mostly pensions.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always say the most important thing that should be done, if you're found ignoring a Board of Regents ruling or breaking the law while collecting a taxpayer-funded salary from the taxpayers, you should never be allowed to work for the government again, and you should be stripped of your pension. There must be consequences for breaking the law, which I know sounds crazy. There must be consequences for being a department chair who ignores a Board of Regents ruling. And we see these random people fired, but I always want to know, who hired them? Were you terrible at hiring them, or did you hire them because they're
all
radical?
Here. I don't know how you guys spend the night in that city.
Exactly.
We're going
who's managing them?
In a minute. Yeah, we're going to talk about it's godforsaken S-hole under the leadership of and the direction of Democrats, of course. But so when we looked at before you came on, we looked at this Voting Rights Act that just passed SCOTUS, and I noticed in there that it was written with the words disparate impact, right? And a lot of the policies that you're going after, DEI itself is to theoretically eradicate disparate impact, just writ large. Have you thought about, or have you heard about how these rulings coming down from SCOTUS would also affect DEI? Because I mean, it's starting to be, now it's, affirmed that's unconstitutional to racially profile for voting districts.
Well, it really depends, and it depends what you're talking about in terms of DEI, because again, people incorrectly assume it's just modern affirmative action, when in reality it's far worse than that. It's telling white people that they are oppressors and minorities that they are oppressed. It's telling people that violence against an oppressor is morally justified because it's merely resistance to oppression. So it's not always strictly, quotas or anything like that, because those certainly would be banned. And of course, we see university after university trying to get around those bans. For example, they'll admit people from a certain zip code, which they know to be a high propensity of the demographic they're looking for. And, it's just like we see in K through 12 education. It's a whack-a-mole game where we endlessly have to go after them because they don't want to comply with the law. Again, I have a solution. Take away their funding. If 66% of their funding is already private, great. Let's round that up to a solid 100%. Call it a day. Do whatever you want with your own funding. I won't tell you what to do with it, but stop spending mine for radicalism.
I agree with that. I also find it interesting and looking at their finances that they keep a lot of their donor money separate because they want to use the state money.
What a surprise. They want to use our money before spending their own. It's
Correct.
Fun how that works out, isn't it?
It is. It's very interesting. That particular school was one I've looked at all of them, Adam. We've got a report from our auditor. Every time he sends one out, I run it through AI and then I go ahead and crunch the numbers. I ask very specific questions. I'd like to send you some of them as you go look around. So if you're going to another North Carolina school, one in particular, I know you guys, I think you hit North Carolina A&T, didn't you?
I believe we did.
Oh,
Yes.
well, listen, you should hear what happened. We'll just revert back on that one just for a second because I remember that when you went there, they uncovered that funding from the state was being used to give relatives loans and money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then financial aid, there was something done with financial aid where some of the federal money had been
misappropriated.
Well, of course this would happen. As we see, these people view themselves as far above the law and entirely unaccountable. It's obviously terrible in K through 12 education, but they got to deal with parents now and then. These people working in higher education, have they ever encountered a taxpayer? Probably not. Have they ever encountered anyone to make sure they were, following the law? Only us. So they feel like they've got money descending from the heavens to their pockets to do whatever ideology they want. And they can't even stand the idea of anybody speaking up to it. Jay Edwards was in the news in your state this week. He was the director of the LGBTQ Center. I forget the university.
Yes, he is crying the blues big time.
He's crying the blues, but he's wiping his tears with cash because he did a big GoFundMe where he made a ton of money. I think twice his goal. Good for him if that's what people want to donate their money to. But he bemoaned the fact that within 24 hours they fired him. But again, I think they fired him because they wanted to cover their own you-know-whats. Because if he's doing this, he wasn't speaking in a vacuum about his own actions. He was talking about the department and the university. He should have been followed by a half a dozen or more additional people. Your attorney general should be investigating like the attorney general in Texas does, left and right every time we drop an investigation.
Yeah, well, we're not going to get that because we have a radical attorney general. So
sure.
There's that. Well, it's interesting to see the things that you have uncovered. Yeah. And I know that you have a good propensity for North Carolina schools. So just stay in touch. We'll send you all the reports we got. You can use some of the financials. What I've noticed overall in North Carolina is North Carolina taxpayers are getting ripped off. They're getting ripped off at UNC, at UNCA, at UNC, at North Carolina A&T. We're getting ripped off, and it's millions. And we recently, Sloan and I were looking at the math and science art school for a state school.
It's sort of like a state magnet school, if you will, and a boarding school.
Boarding school. That is another ripoff.
I mean, the whole thing is a scam. Jay Edwards in the LGBTQ Center. Why is there a taxpayer-funded LGBTQ Center? Are there studies showing that the gay kids learn differently than the straight kids?
Right.
Why do we need to hyper-focus on our differences when sociologists say that drives us apart?
Well, Adam, apparently LGBTQIA LMNOP children need to learn by seeing, I'm just going to tell you, butt plugs, gay sex, etc. I'm not even kidding you. This is in the news here. It's in the textbooks here. It's in oversight hearings. That's the only reason why I'm saying it. And we have a superintendent of schools in Chapel Hill. Imagine that.
Dr. Tice.
Right. I'm saying that, he's being shown a picture of men in bondage gear out on the street. And he goes, well, that's just community. So in other words, you're telling me that gay, and by the way, we have gay parents on the show, and they're like, right. No, I want them learning math, science, etc. Thank you very much. I don't want them in the corner. You're really reducing children with gay parents, if you will, or gay kids to deviance, and that's not what they are at all. Do you know what I mean? it's
Unquestionably. The good thing is, by all objective measures, they fail at education dramatically. So hopefully they'll fail at teaching that as well. We need to stop pretending that education, traditional K through 12 education, exists to educate the children. It doesn't. Look at all objective measures. They fail at that task. What are the tasks they succeed at? Every 2 weeks without fail, the teachers get paid. They don't mess that up. Every paycheck without fail, a portion goes to the unions. They never mess that up. And every election without fail, 99.9% of those donations go to far left candidates. This is a scheme to funnel money from taxpayers to far left candidates, with a couple lucky kids getting educated along the way by some noble teachers. But that's a fortunate byproduct of a broken system.
Listen, I think you've really illustrated the point that we're about to see in North Carolina tomorrow, May Day, Communist Day, right? The teachers in North Carolina have decided they don't want to come to school and teach. They're going to take the day off and force some school systems in county school systems to close so that they can go protest that they're not getting paid enough, and they don't want our taxes to go down.
Right. They want higher taxes for us.
This is a great reminder that even as recently as FDR, Americans were widely opposed to allowing government employees to unionize. Even FDR was opposed to allowing collective bargaining because it's a corrupt system where you get to negotiate with the people that you elected. It leads to fraud, waste, and abuse. And most of all, it leads to a broken system that only exists to fund these far-left candidates, enriching the big fat cat unions along the way, and leads to a terrible product. And that's what government does on the state, local, and federal level with every major service it claims to deliver. Whether it's, the prisons or the roads or anything they claim to do, they consistently do a poor job at it, but those unions never fail to get the money. And that money never fails to go to the far left candidates. And then they always do a poor job so that they can go back to you and say, well, we need more money. The teachers are always underpaid, so they can go back to you and say, we need more money. Even when they get more money, it goes to more administrators. If they ever properly paid the teachers who deserve it, they wouldn't be able to say they need more money. So they'll always keep the roads with potholes because they need more money. They'll always keep the good teachers underpaid so they could say we need more money. They don't want to solve problems. It's a corrupt system.
Yeah, and it's also very clear to me that the administrators, because Mo Green, who is the North Carolina public, what is he? He's the DPI, head of DPI. He refused to call it out and say, no, don't do that. He sided with the teachers. So now we got kids who just found out this Monday, their parents did, that they weren't going to have school, are scrambling to find places to put their kids, or they have to take off work.
Taxpayers have to take the day off work.
Right. And then Wake County decided they looked at it and they went, oops, if we let these kids out and we don't have them in school, we don't get paid for that day. So now they're going to do remote learning. They're going to do remote learning tomorrow.
It's a broken system, so you should expect this from it every day. Or I shouldn't call it a broken system. I say it's doing an excellent job at the task for which it's really devoted. Yeah. Educating your kids is an occasional fortunate byproduct that might happen if you're lucky. Like waiting for the bus. Is it going to be on time? No. Maybe it arrives eventually, or maybe the next one does. Like driving down the roads. Are they perfect? Heck no. These are systems that aren't designed to provide the service that you think they're designed to provide. So don't expect otherwise.
I said, this is going to be the best voting tool for Republicans. If these teachers think that going off from Catawba County, which is a pretty big drive, and a very rural county, as a matter of fact, or from Buncombe County, Asheville, if they think that the parents are going to be okay with that, I think not.
Yeah. And by the way, when we fight for school choice in states across the country, the biggest obstacle often, you said rural areas, is rural Republicans. Because the biggest job employer in their district usually are schools. And again, does this system exist to employ people as a make work jog program to help out the unions and to fund left candidates? Or am I crazy for thinking that the goal of education might be to educate some kids? This is why universal school choice is so important.
I think you're right on school choice in that respect, because I think it's the first or second large employer here, because I'm in a very rural county. But I also think there's another component. We don't have another school to go to. So why would we want to fund a rich kid getting to move and make a choice and get a voucher to go to another school when Adam, I'm not kidding when I tell you this. There's areas where I live that don't even have landline service, not broadband. We're talking landline. So we're already behind. Allowing those urbanized areas to have that choice puts us even further behind. So take that into consideration. We got to figure a way around that.
Well, to that, I would say, one, I couldn't tell you the last time I had a landline phone. I don't know what they're missing out on. They can have Starlink. What do they need a landline phone for?
You can't get fiber without it. You can't have fiber optics without it. You can't have.
You can have Starlink, which is fantastic.
You're right, but you know what? They can't afford it.
Starlink?
They can't afford it here. This is a very poor community.
That's incredibly unfortunate to hear. So we need to create more job opportunities for them.
Or give them a grant. Or let them get a voucher.
Well, what I would say is, what I've found is that when there's a demand for a product, and if people have the funds for that product, the private market is pretty darn good at offering a supply.
You're
so
right.
If there's an influx in demand for not just private schools, but charter schools, and how we've done it in Ohio, Florida, Arizona, it's not a voucher system. It's essentially funding students instead of systems. The money follows the child. They can go to a virtual schooling program, in which Florida is a pioneer. They can use it as a voucher for a private school. And the money can follow them to a charter school. They can even pool those funds with other local parents and create a learning pod, hire a teacher on their own. Those funds can be used for homeschooling. It's just like how we fund food stamps. We don't geographically assign people a shopping, a convenience store based on their zip code. They don't have the products I like. Tough luck, Instead, we give them the funds and let them make their own decision with some constraints. That's all that universal school choice is.
Good talking to you, Adam. I really appreciate this. And that last piece, we're going to clip that because I think it's important.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you. Keep doing your great work, and we'll have you on very soon again. And Accuracy in Media, follow them on X, follow them on Facebook, and most importantly, go to the website because you guys have a very nice, easy to use website that has all the investigations up. So thank you very much.
You're very kind. Thank you for having me. AIM.org, AIM.org. And you can send a message directly to the relevant elected officials in North Carolina regarding your universities on that page.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Always good to have you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So Asheville again. It just keeps coming. So we've got Mayor Robert Burns. We have you on all the time. I talked to you earlier. I told you that. Well, first of all, let me download you on this. What did you think of what Adam was saying about more of the same with education stuff?
Well, first and foremost, thank y'all for having me. It's always a blessing to be here and talk with you ladies. What a smart man. Right?
I know.
He knows his stuff inside and out. Adam is incredibly brilliant. That's ultimately what we're running across is it's just consistently more of the same. We have a broken education system here in North Carolina. I'm absolutely tired, as I'm sure y'all are, and as Adam was speaking about this, doing the same thing over and over again. That is the definition of insanity, right? Trying to do the same thing over and over again with a different result. And that is what we have now perpetually done in the state of North Carolina. We have a broken system where kids are getting undereducated, where teachers are getting underpaid. And yet now we have a governor and other individuals trying to dictate for us, once again, taking away funds, trying to redistribute those, and now slamming a new budget in and asking for another $20-30 million. To Adam's point, the problem with our education system is that I'm almost confused, and I don't know about you guys, but is anybody really wanting to fix this system? I think that's what
feel like it.
It really
does. Band-Aid.
Consistent.
So, right. As you know, I've covered education for a long time, especially with Ed First Alliance for 5 years. And getting accountability is really hard, whether it comes from Republicans or Democrats. I will say, to the extreme credit of Majority Leader Brendan Jones, who heads the Oversight Committee, and some others, there are reformers that want to do the right thing. And they're, for the first time, calling in people like Rodney Trice, like we talked about, superintendents, saying, what has happened because we see things when we were talking, I'm like, this is a great topic because this story about Asheville, now that we've been talking about Asheville, it used to be the place that snowbirds would go to, right? Wealthy Floridians would come up here. They spend their time here as a vacation hub. But now, under the direction of libtards, it is turned into a godforsaken hellhole with this. It originally came out in the New York Post. I don't know if you've read it, but the rate of crime is pretty much on par with any urban area across the country. Homelessness has been like the meatpacking district in San Francisco, or the
and drug use. Drug use is ridiculously high.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And so it's insane. It's I mean, it is liberal policies applied. And if you want to see laboratories where that is applied, you can look at Charlotte. You can look at Asheville.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. You know, I grew up in this state. I mean, I was born and raised here. And Asheville is always one of those places that you would go and you just, it was beautiful and you had so much going on. Yeah. So inviting. It's homey, you know, all these things. And to your point, Sloan, the biggest problem is that, again, I think it's across, I think this is more what my messaging and as I've been traveling around the state recently, talking to people about, are you tired of the same old? Who's willing to step into the fray and change things? That's what I'm getting, along with all of you guys, we're tired of, because now you have a beautiful place like Asheville. And it breaks my heart.
The point is, the Democrats are willing to step in and change things, as evidenced by this. So if they're changing things by adding laws that draw people away and adding laws that, you know, keep people out of jail and just not following the law at all, where are our changes? Thank you.
There you go. I mean, so people have to understand the basics of the Democrat Party now. What they want to do is they want you to rely on them. They want to break down our structure. They want to break down our families. They want to make these cities, they're not focusing on safety. They want higher taxes. They want to tax you into oblivion. They want to take money out of your pockets. They want to do those things so that you turn back to the government and say, I can't wait to another stipend. I can't wait to another handout from the government. You know, hey, I'm the government and I'm here to help, right? Those are the scariest words. And that is what they're actually very successful at, you know, and that's what we need. We need more people willing to step into the fray and say, you know, look, we can't stop going along to get along type stuff. Okay. We need individuals who are going to step into it and say, I've had it. We need new policies. We need to refresh departments. We need a new tax policy in this state. We've got to stop taking money out of our people's pockets. And when you hear someone, and I'm going to hammer him, when you hear someone like Governor Stein stand behind a podium and try and lecture people about tax cuts and about how he cares about the safety also of those people, look at what's happening in Charlotte, Asheville, Raleigh, Wilmington. What is he even talking about? It's driving me crazy.
Yeah, this is what you put out there. I mean, he's, you know, doing a lot of talking about being pro law enforcement and anti-crime. But Margot, you correctly hammer the hell out of him for this equity criminal justice policy that was a brainchild of him and at the time. What were some of the tenets in that?
Well, it's not just that I hammer him on, because like this is the same guy who's starting to say crime, bad, who has criminals do his Christmas ornaments and celebrates them, who didn't get the rape kits done, even though he said he would. Like, it's not just about the racial equity inclusion crap that he and Anita Earls, who was also on that committee,
they created, I mean, a de facto revolving door. At Substack, I wrote a 3-part piece, really breaking it down. And again, if you're not on our Substack, it bears the question: what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
it's free.
Yeah, if you're not on our Substack list, what the heck is wrong with you? but I mean, so the crime policies we see now were crafted by him. And to your extreme credit, you're sitting here and saying he's not speaking out about it. You know why? Because he's helped proliferate it.
Okay, so one of the things, as I'm talking to individuals and asking, okay, I'm spending a lot of time, how can I help? I know, but I want to hear from you. And I have had the opportunity to talk to numerous sheriffs around this entire state, okay, recently. And I don't know if people realize, because this keeps coming back up, that Roy Cooper and Josh Stein were instrumental in decreasing the amount of beds in juvenile detention centers.
Yeah. They wanted to let them out.
What do we do when these individuals do not have consequences, specifically at the age of these juvenile offenders, right? We are teaching them that your actions don't have consequences. And that's what we've done. And we've created and perpetuated a system that criminals can get away with things, and you can go and you can jump on cars and you can have all of these
murder people.
We've seen
murder people.
But Mayor, the highest, when we look at, an age cohort, the highest rate of violent crimes in terms of growth year over year since 2020, year over year, is the 16 to 18 year. I think it's the 15 to 18 year old. Violent crime, murder, forcible rape.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and the biggest thing that a lot of that departments, these police departments care about a lot, is also retaliation, right? So you might have an issue with, you might be beefing against somebody, in high school, and maybe some dude stole your girlfriend or whatever it may be, and then you get in a fight. It's the retaliation, and another thing that is directly correlated, and I'm not sure people understand this, is that the need for officers versus how many positions are filled in these departments as well. Okay.
I think there's another one. What about the bail system? Because Sloan and I did a story about a grandmother whose granddaughter was killed around the Charlotte area, and they literally revoked the bail and let this kid go stay with his grandmother or her grandmother in South Carolina with no ankle monitor.
Murdered, covered up the body, and then a Mecklenburg County judge, surprise, reaffirmed that decision to add insult to injury to this family later. So it is a magistrate system.
It's a revolving door.
Well, you heard about the individual recently who had like an altercation with his girlfriend who was pregnant. And I think he was like Trinidad or something like that. I think MS-13. Oh, wow. And he was in Charlotte and he got in an argument and it was an accident. The gunfire shoots her in the stomach. She ends up not the lady, but the baby dies. Okay. And then so the first bail is for $1 million. Well, then shortly after, the judge changes it to $25,000. I think it was Matt Vanswell talked about this. This is what's happening because we're also not keeping these judges and magistrates that do not have to have a law degree. We're not holding them accountable to these cases. And this is why I think and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but also when it comes down to taxes and things like this, we are fooling ourselves if we think it's one problem. And if we think by changing one thing, we're going to fix it all. This is systemic. We need a complete change. We need a whole redo. And that's what we need across this state. Stop promoting and doing the same thing. And then every 2 to 4 years, everybody gets all nice but fiery during the primaries. Enough of this. We need change agents around this state that are willing to step in and say, I'm tired of the direction that we're going. We have new ideas. What are you going to do about it?
Well, what do you suggest? How are we going to do that? Are we going to get rid of all the magistrates? Are we going to hire people that bring new ideas? Is there somebody coming to the forefront that you know of?
Well, maybe.
I've heard. We're on the street.
I didn't mean to make you turn red, Mayor.
We're on the street.
Well,
exploring.
I'm exploring some options right now, and we haven't made any formal decisions, or formal announcements. I've made some decisions. I can tell you that right now. We've taken the first steps necessary to get out and meet individuals. And once again, just listen to the people. That's what we need to do. We need a fresh reset in this state. We need to really look at what are our tax policies? How are we handling crime? What are our problems in our education system? And really find and stop talking about how everything is, great or bad. We now want to hear, how are you going to fix it? And I can't wait to be able to share those plans and those policies with people. I simply just want to challenge everybody out there. What has Josh Stein done? It's that simple. We've talked about it all the time on social media, and you hear it all the time. You have people dying in the streets of Charlotte. You have riots going on. Someone gets stabbed in the neck.
He's vetoed 4 major crime bills that would stop that. That's what he's done. And he's
writing a lot of barbecue, though.
Well, look, that's what a Jewish boy does, right? Eats barbecue.
Does he really know what barbecue is, though? That's
exactly what I was thinking.
He's also ridden the coattails of the Republicans in the legislature, and the Republicans have let him do that. See, the proof is in the pudding. It's what you actually do. He actually came up with the worst criminal justice policy the state has ever seen, and then followed by 4 vetoes. And one of them was that, wait for it, sit down, hold up, wait a minute, that the sheriffs in this state have to follow federal law and expedite illegals if they've committed crime. So here's what he does in sequence. He creates that policy. He gets into office for the governor, vetoes those bills, and then 2 common sense Republicans Democrats went along with Republicans, right? And helped with those crime bills to get him across the line. He puts all of his political capital in
getting rid of them
campaigns and drove them out of the party. He put all of his political capital in getting, moonbats to run and win and beat them in primaries. And these 2 Republicans in Mecklenburg County, the worst affected by the crime policies, have now become independents. I yield to you.
It just shows actually how radical he is. It is literally what we are. We're warning people. That's why we've got to carry the momentum across the state right now. It's not about me. It's about what are we doing currently right now for our midterms. So while I am traveling the state and I'm, exercising some options and setting up things for right now, we're doing a great job. And there's a lot of energy and a lot of people asking me to specifically run for governor. It's not about me. It's about making sure we carry that energy. Because if we give Josh Stein 1 ounce of, or how about this? Give an inch. If we give that guy an inch, he will try and do exactly what the governor of Virginia has done, running on a moderate program, and then all of a sudden some of the most radical policies. The next 2 years, and I'm warning all North Carolinians, if we do not show up in the midterms, the next 2 years will be incredibly difficult. You said it, Sloan, and we've talked about it before. The reality is the reason why individuals like Cooper and like Josh Stein, why
Jeff
Jackson, and the reason why they poll high is because Democrats are really good at key phrases and wording. But the reality is that all the things that we have going on good in this state is because even with its issues, the conservative Republican legislature is carrying their load the whole time. It's a resume that makes everybody excited. And then you have someone like Josh Stein stand up and say, hey, we're #1 in small business. But you know what I want to do to you? I want to increase your taxes. He just literally said that. He's literally telling people we want
on the street. The bills and put criminals on the street. The bills he vetoed, we see, in other words, and I don't know why more Republicans aren't talking about this. In fact, I'm sorry if you're listening, NCGOP, your social media account, you're saying a lot of things without saying anything. The vetoes this man has done with 4 criminal justice bills that were common sense is disqualifying the end.
Well, and to my post that you pulled up, what governor, when you are the head of the executive branch, don't ask Gary McFadden this. When you are the head of the executive branch,
he didn't know what branch,
right?
McFadden, Sheriff McFadden doesn't know what branch it is.
Well, what's your job? To carry out and execute the law. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And what governor or attorney general is going to say, top cop, by the way, attorney general, are they ever going to come out against law enforcement? But actions speak louder than words, Josh. Actions speak louder than words. And so you're now hamstringing your sheriffs to literally comply with federal law. Do people realize that in this state, we are a pass-through state?
Yes.
That means that federal funds come through the state legislature and then to municipalities. When the president of the United States says, if we find out that you are a sanctuary city and or harboring illegals, or you have DEI, and we find out, we're going to stop federal funds, Asheville, right? We're going to stop these things. And then we have a top cop at the top saying, we're not really going to worry about this right now. Really, you're going to risk tax money to get people out of the hole, like in Helene.
Well, I mean, it's worse than that, because when you're talking about, let's just take the bill that got Carla Cunningham, representative of Mecklenburg County, is not an independent, by the way, into trouble, is when you, from a law enforcement perspective, when you're talking about when there's a prisoner who has just, murdered someone, right, or is wanted for murder, and you let him out, it becomes extremely dangerous for our law enforcement to catch them when they're out. It's 20 times more dangerous for them to catch them out in neighborhoods, et cetera, for them and for the community than it is if they're in jail. So they're putting law enforcement officers in the line of fire just by that decision.
And all the sheriffs know this, but the Democrat ones know this. Was it not also McFadden who, I think he warned Cunningham that he can't protect her in his own?
Oh, absolutely. He did.
What? Didn't he do that?
He absolutely did. And she brought it to light to everybody to see it.
Right. And so here we are. This is the game that they play, because that is what this radical party, the Democrat Party. Now, I'm going to be very clear on this. The Democrat Party, the officials, the leaders. You see, when I go and I talk to people around the state, I'm not asking them first, before you talk to me, are you Republican, Democrat, Independent, unaffiliated, anything? I don't do that. I look at you as a North Carolinian. That is the most important thing that we've got to consider, is that that's not actually what leadership. I've seen it locally, and I see it at the state level too. And we always see it federally. They are not the people that they say they are when they're running to get elected. That is what is dramatically different about them. Now, trust me, the Republican Party has plenty of officials that, walk back, and they don't try to seem so hard, and they're really scared, and many of them are feckless. I get all that. We can throw out names, but this is almost like on par, like to be a part of, or to be a leader in the Democrat Party, you've got to be able to basically one day pretend you changed your mind, and in fact, you're lying to people. And
chameleon.
So that's what
you got to toe the line. And again, it's not hyperbole. We just gave you evidence. We just gave you two solid cases of what the Democrats do if you step out of line. And the requirement is that you be radical, period, in a discussion and with your
don't say anything. Don't question their authority.
Well, you have to vote. Yeah, but you have to caucus with them every single time. You cannot vote your conscience. That's
it. And so you see that, like, even locally, one of the big arguments on one of our city council recently was a set of funding, and our mayor pro tem, I was questioning her specifically on some of her choices, and the question, she's a Democrat, the question came out is, why are you questioning me? You are challenging the integrity of our committee. And I'm like, time out. Every elected official needs to be prepared to be questioned.
Right.
Question me on my policies, question me on my votes, question me on all this stuff. And I can prove you wrong, because they were trying to do some things to me, and I can prove them wrong. But that's the thing. When an elected official says, stop questioning me, is when you need to throw up a red flag. And that's actually what happened. That's what Carla Cunningham did. She questioned the authority of the governor in his decision-making for the safety of her own people. her constituents. And listen, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to her. Like, what a bold move. Not because she was a Democrat and sided with Republicans, because she actually made the right decision for her state and for her county. Now that might, that's the beauty about it.
Paid for it.
You can vote people out if you dislike them. And she was voted out in a sense, but not without the top guy coming in and saying, you can't rebuke me.
Picking
and that
yep. And endorsing that guy. Well, I wish we had more time.
Radical.
There's so many problems. Yeah, he's like, Al Sharpton. Actually, there's so many problems to talk about. This is going to be a continuing conversation.
Yes.
Because you're traveling so much around the state. You're getting good data about what to.
You're getting good data to tell us what the announcement is. You'll come back and tell us.
By the way,
we'll absolutely do that.
The last thing I want to talk about right quick. Is it okay to talk about the snake?
What snake?
There are lots of snakes in politics, but in the personal life too. Sure, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. All right. So your lovely wife, love her to death. I mean, she looks totally like Jackie O, and the woman has 6 children, and your children are all bigger than her.
Yes.
So I can kind of relate over here with 6. Just great. I love her to death. So she's outside yesterday or a couple of days ago, whatever.
Yesterday. Yep.
Yesterday, and a 4-foot long copperhead bites her on the leg.
Yeah.
What happened? Yeah, I would freak out.
So I'll kind of lay the story ground. I'm outside where it's a beautiful night. She's on the phone with her dad. They're just talking. She's by our big rope swing and stuff, and I'm cooking salmon. Okay. It was going to be the best salmon in the world, but I didn't get a chance to eat it. Because all of a sudden I hear out of the back of our backyard, "This isn't good, babe. This isn't good." And I'm like, "What's not good? This is going to be really good," And so she comes running around the side of the house and she's like, "I think I just got bit by a snake." And I said, "You did? Well, let me look." And so she looks, and sure enough, there were 2 puncture wounds and they were bleeding and they were big. And I'm like, "Wow, you did get bit." And I'm like, "Well, we have to go see what type of snake this is." And she goes, I hope it's not a copperhead," because she definitely looked at that time. So we go back in the back, and there's like woods that surround our property. And so we walk back there, and I'm looking, we have our flashlights because it's dusk out. And she goes, "There it is." And I kind of jump because I'm looking down by my feet, and I look straight out in front of me, and there's a giant 4-foot copperhead that's about as thick as my wrist, maybe forearm, and it's just sitting there, ready to go. And so I saw it with my flashlight, and meaning like, that is a copperhead. It's time to go to the hospital. So we ran in, and my boys, they're not afraid at all of snakes. My oldest 18-year-old, my oldest son, 18-year-old, he slips on some boots, like, "Give me my boots," and goes out immediately, wants to chop this thing up to a million pieces because this snake hurt his mama. And so he did. He went and found it, cut its head off because we wanted to find it before it could go anywhere else.
Yeah.
But she's doing well now. I mean, as well as you can.
What happens?
It can be deadly. I mean, very deadly.
So so we got to the hospital 30 minutes in, and there was a giant ball on the side of her foot. And by about an hour or so, her entire left leg swole up. I mean, it was nuts, to be honest with you. And now, like, we had to sit around because the poison control, they wanted to make sure there's like a 6-hour window, as long as it wasn't continuing to spread or inflame, and she didn't have other side effects like a fever and sickness and stuff like that. And so we're around for probably about 8 hours. And they decided we didn't need the antivenom, because actually the antivenom is there in case it gets really bad. And there's not like, it's like kind of going down, or like at least staying put, in other words. And so there's issues actually that come with using that antivenom. And I know a friend dear to me, as a matter of fact, his mom got bit by a copperhead and now she's deaf because the antivenom.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, but you know what? It's better her to be, healed than dead. Right. And so, and that's easy for me to say, but like, it's one of those things where there are risks that come with it. And so, about 8 hours in, they were like, "Well, it's not progressing. Your labs look good." And so they sent us home, and she is hemmed up, y'all. She's hurting. You can barely, it is so sensitive. Her leg is so sensitive. you could literally take, and I'm not exaggerating, you could just barely brush, or like if you try to use a feather and just like touch her foot, it hurts so bad. So we've had a huge outpouring in prayer, and we've all been praying about it. And a lot of people have come out and helped us, and she's doing well. The First Lady of Monroe's great. We love her. She's so awesome. And I think it constitutes to, just a great community we have around here. So many people have kind of, come out and see how they can help, and she's good, but there was a kind of hit or miss there for a little bit, because you don't know.
Really careful of snakes.
Wow.
Like, especially at night. I'll tell you what, I'll just tell you a quick story. A couple years ago, and I had all the kids' friends here. They were young. And I was talking on the phone, business call with serious people. So this is just the context. And I wasn't watching what I was doing. And I reached down, behind the bushes where the hose is. I'm like, well, I'm going to get this hose. And I reached down, and I was actually reaching for a snake, black snake that big around. And I mean, I broke the woman laying
decibel barrier.
And I said some words.
I
said some words that I had to apologize for parents.
Look, I mean, it's the my boys are not afraid of snakes. My kids aren't necessarily afraid of snakes, and they got great eyes, like 20/10 vision, so they can like literally look and be like, if that's a poisonous snake, that's not. They love that type of stuff. Okay. But still, I wasn't really raised that way, but I'm like, we're going to make you a better man than me. And that's how we're going to do that's part of it. And so I have snake hunters, and man, my 18-year-old boy, he was angry, and he put his boots on, and he went out with the shovel. And like my mom asked, is that like a vampire? Because he cut the head and buried the body in a different spot. And she's like,
oh, wow.
Expect him to come back alive.
That's pretty deep. Yeah. But I mean,
listen, Mayor,
you guys. Yeah.
Don't hesitate to come back on. We love having you. And please tell your wife that we're thinking of her, and we hope everything goes well. We're praying for her.
Well,
it's always good to see you, and I hope you do come back to see us.
Great to see you guys. Always. Just
see you on Tuesday night.
I'm open. Just let me know.
If you're heading this way in North Carolina, let me know.
We have some trips coming out there very soon. As a matter of fact, in a week and a half. Make
sure you start posting them on X so we can spread them around so people know.
You got it. I'll do it. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.